On December 29, 2020, a 911 call pierced the air in Norfolk, Virginia, reporting unimaginable violence. Epiphany Andrews, a young mother, lay in a pool of blood, brutally stabbed 25 times and beaten beyond recognition. The scene defied all logic. How could such a vibrant life be extinguished with such ferocity? What authorities found next would send shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators. This is the harrowing story of Dwayne Warren, a man whose actions forever scarred a family and a community. Welcome to Daily Crime Headquarters. I'm here to guide you through one of the most disturbing cases I've ever encountered. This case didn't just shock Norfolk. It exposed a hidden darkness within a seemingly ordinary home, forever altering the lives of everyone it touched. What you're about to hear contains details that have remained largely concealed until now, revealing a pattern of unthinkable violence that will leave you questioning the very nature of humanity. Epiphany Andrews was more than just a victim. She was a beacon of light for her family. A devoted mother, she worked tirelessly to build a better future for her children. Her days were a whirlwind of balancing work, caring for her 3-month-old son, Demir, and cherishing every moment with him. She dreamed of providing a stable and loving home, filled with laughter and joy. Her love for Demir was boundless, a fierce, protective instinct that guided her every decision. On December 29th, following the Christmas holiday, Epiphany made a seemingly routine visit to Dwayne Warren's apartment. She was no longer living with him, but she went to pick up Demir, completely unaware that this simple act of motherhood would lead her to the precipice of an unimaginable tragedy. She had no idea that her devotion to her son would ultimately seal her fate. What were your initial thoughts when you heard about Epiphany's visit? Share your theories in the comments below. As Epiphany arrived at Dwayne's apartment, a surface normalcy cloaked the horror that lay within. The silence was perhaps the first subtle warning sign, an unsettling quiet where the gurgle and coos of a baby should have been. Dwayne was there, but something about his demeanor was off. He was drenched in blood, a chilling detail that Epiphany, in her anxious state, might have initially dismissed as a result of some unknown accident. The air in the apartment felt heavy, thick with an unspoken dread. Epiphany's maternal instincts screamed at her, a primal alarm bell ringing in her mind. But what she didn't know was that the point of no return had already passed. What do you think Epiphany was feeling in those moments? Was there anything she could have done differently? Let us know your thoughts. Epiphany's discovery was a nightmare. The apartment was in disarray, a testament to a violent struggle. And then she saw him, Demir, her precious 3-month-old son, lay lifeless on the floor alongside Dwayne, who was also covered in blood. The shock, the terror, the grief, it all crashed down on her in an instant. This horrific sight propelled her to call 911, her voice trembling with despair. But by the time police arrived, the unspeakable had already become the undeniable. The officers stumbled upon a scene of utter devastation. Dwayne was immediately arrested, his blood-soaked clothes a stark contrast to the innocent lives that lay still around him. The brutality of the scene left an indelible mark on everyone present. The initial moments of Dwayne's interrogation were a labyrinth of denial and fragmented thoughts. Detectives, facing a man covered in blood and surrounded by unimaginable tragedy, sought to understand the events that had just unfolded. Dwayne's answers were erratic, a jumble of contradictions and feigned confusion. "I pushed on his stomach," he mumbled, referring to his son, Demir. When pressed why, he could only repeat, "I don't know. I don't know what it is that just made me. I'm just kept saying to hurt." He claimed Demir was fine that morning, then admitted to hard breathing before eventually stopping. His narrative shifted, painting a picture of a man grappling with a horrific act he couldn't comprehend, or perhaps wouldn't admit to. The conversation then turned to Epiphany. Dwayne stated she came to pick up Demir, unaware of the horror awaiting her. He claimed he told her the baby was asleep in the other room. "And then I stab," he confessed, in a chillingly flat tone, admitting to stabbing Epiphany, though he couldn't specify where or how many times. "Stop," she pleaded, he recounted, his voice devoid of emotion. He acknowledged that the kitchen knife with a black handle was still in the apartment. The detectives, seeking to understand the motive, pressed him on his feelings for Epiphany. "I love her. I do love her. I do," he insisted, his words clashing violently with his actions. This contradiction, this claim of love juxtaposed with extreme violence, was a recurring theme in his statements, making it difficult to discern genuine remorse from a desperate attempt to rationalize the unthinkable. As the interview continued, a truly disturbing revelation surfaced. Dwayne had made a Facebook post that day, stating, "My babies, I love y'all. I'm so sorry." This post, made after the horrific acts, raised further questions about his state of mind. Was it a cry for help, an admission of guilt, or a calculated maneuver? What are your thoughts on Dwayne's Facebook post? Do you think it was genuine remorse or something else? The investigation journey took an even darker turn when detectives introduced another name. Ivonne Warren, Dwayne's 12-week-old daughter. "Now, you had another child with her, didn't you?" the detective probed, the question hanging heavy in the air. Dwayne's initial reaction was a stark, almost accusatory, "How do you know my baby name?" A fleeting glimpse of a father's protective instinct, quickly overshadowed by the horrific truth. It was revealed that on December 19, 2019, just over a year before the current tragedy, emergency services had responded to a report from Dwayne and Epiphany about their unresponsive daughter, Ivonne, who was later pronounced dead. Dwayne had initially claimed it was a tragic co-sleeping accident. But the evidence, like with Demir, told a different, far more brutal story. Ivonne had sustained multiple healing blunt force injuries to her head and neck, including subdural hemorrhages and injuries to her spinal cord. These were not consistent with a co-sleeping accident. They were consistent with repeated abuse. The detectives, employing the pattern recognition technique, gently pushed Dwayne to acknowledge the similarities between the two incidents. "Is it that you were afraid that Epiphany knew what you did to Ivonne and maybe she found out today what you did to Demir and you were afraid that she was going to go expose it and she was covering for you for the last year and 10 days and she loved you enough that maybe she was covering for what you did to Ivonne?" the detective posited, trying to break through Dwayne's denial. Dwayne's responses remained evasive, interspersed with pleas of, "I don't know why," and "something's wrong with me." He claimed he didn't hurt Ivonne, despite the overwhelming evidence. The evidence breadcrumb method was in full effect, with the detective meticulously detailing Ivonne's injuries: multiple rib fractures, facial bruising, patchy adhesions of the spleen, healing liver laceration with scarring. These were not injuries from a fall or an accident. They were the scars of sustained violence. The detective's tone shifted from prosecutorial to compassionate, urging Dwayne to get it off your chest about Ivonne. "Let's make this right." They emphasized that his past actions couldn't be undone, but confession could bring a measure of peace. However, Dwayne remained in a prospective prison, locked in his own denial, unable or unwilling to confront the full scope of his atrocities. What do you think caused Dwayne to initially deny harming Ivonne, even when faced with overwhelming evidence? Despite the mounting evidence and the detective's persistent questioning, Dwayne clung to his denial regarding Ivonne's death. He even attempted to shift blame, suggesting his uncle might have been present and responsible, a claim quickly disproven by his own prior statements and epiphanies. "I didn't hurt my daughter," he insisted, a desperate plea that rang hollow against the weight of the autopsy reports. The detective, unwavering, continued to lay out the horrifying facts, painting a vivid picture of Ivonne's suffering. Her body couldn't take the fractures any longer. That's how she died. They described the patchy adhesions of the spleen, healing liver laceration with scarring, multiple bilateral rib, antemortem fractures in 3 stages of healing. The sheer brutality and the prolonged nature of the abuse were undeniable. Dwayne, seemingly at a breaking point, admitted to needing a cigarette, a small crack in his composure. The detectives, sensing an opportunity, offered to take him outside for a smoke, a tactical move to build rapport and potentially elicit further confession. The conversation then took a critical turn, with the detective recapping the events of Ivonne's death, trying to get Dwayne to acknowledge the truth. "Last year, December 19th, you, Epiphany, and the baby were in the house. You had one of you got upset and you squared her to the point where she'd been in distress. Then you turn and try to do CPR and you call 911. Detectives came, they interviewed you, but you didn't tell them the whole truth. Did I say anything wrong just now? Finally, a glimmer of confession, albeit still shrouded in ambiguity. Dwayne admitted he didn't know what would make me do that to my own baby. The question of Epiphany's involvement was briefly explored, with Dwayne stating she wouldn't hurt the baby in a way to hurt her. This left a lingering question. How could Epiphany not have noticed the escalating abuse of her daughter? The long, arduous journey for justice for Epiphany, Demir, and Ivonne finally culminated on May 27, 2022. Judge Gerald C. Jones of the Norfolk Circuit Court delivered the verdict that had been so long awaited. Dwayne Warren was sentenced on 3 counts of second-degree murder, receiving 50 years in prison for the brutal killings of his infant daughter, Ivonne, his son, Demir, and their mother, Epiphany Andrews. The human cost of Dwayne Warren's actions is immeasurable. A vibrant young woman and 2 innocent children lost their lives, their futures brutally stolen. The community of Norfolk was left grappling with the senseless violence that had occurred within its midst. For the families, the pain and trauma will undoubtedly last a lifetime. But the court's verdict brought a measure of acknowledgement and a long-awaited sense of justice. The lingering questions remain. What truly drove Dwayne Warren to commit such unspeakable acts against the people he claimed to love? Was his apparent confusion a genuine mental health crisis, or a calculated facade to escape accountability? While the legal resolution brought closure, the deeper psychological motivations behind his horrific crimes remain a disturbing enigma. This case serves as a stark reminder of the hidden dangers that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly normal lives. The tragic deaths of Epiphany, Demir, and Ivonne underscore the critical importance of recognizing warning signs and seeking help for those struggling with anger or mental health issues before it's too late. If you or someone you know is experiencing violence or struggling with mental health, please reach out for help. There are resources available. What do you think could have been done differently to prevent this tragedy? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you're interested in another case where a hidden darkness was exposed, you won't want to miss our next story about killer husband panics after police found his wife's body.